Hello, everybody. I'm Stéphane de Messier. I'm the Partnerships and Engagement Lead on Sustainable Consumption at Consumers International. On behalf of Consumers International, I am delighted to welcome our audience and panelists to our session on food waste, titled Love Food, Hate Waste. This session is part of our Sustainable Lifestyle Summit, held to mark World Consumer Rights Day. Consumers International and our members all over the world are focused on the top issues for consumers and fight for a fair and safe and sustainable marketplace for all. The Consumers International program, titled Good Food for All, engages all of our members and partners on a variety of campaigns, research, recommendations, and meaningful innovation for consumers. We're going to go through a bit of housekeeping before I introduce our panel and moderator. So if you could take us to the next slide, please. So interpretation will be available in French and Spanish. To activate this, you just go to the More button at the bottom and select Interpretation and choose the language to which you'd like to listen. Next slide, please. And if you'd like translated captions, you can use that through the Captions button at the bottom. You click there and you select your speaking language and your caption language. And this is just a reminder to our speakers. We will make an effort to speak clearly and slowly. We know there are many in our audience for whom English is not the first language. So this session will be recorded. While we won't have chats or questions from the audience, we are going to seek audience input through a Slido poll. So we'll ask that you please have your phone on hand to scan the Slido when it's ready to respond. We'll come back to that in a moment. Okay. So I'm going to turn now to introducing our fantastic panel. We have leaders and experts on food waste who are joining us. This includes Belén Frau, the Chief Communications Officer of Ingka, or IKEA. We have Dr. Alka Rao, Advisor on Science and Standards for the Food Safety and Standards Authority for the Government of India. We have Clementine O'Connor, the Program Management Officer and a Specialist on Food Waste at the United Nations Environmental Program. And our Stefan Larenas Riobo, who is the president of the Organization of Consumers and Users of Chile, or ORDECU, who is one of our members at Consumers International. And special thanks from Consumers International to Estelle Herszenhorn, who is the head of food system transformation at WRAP. Estelle will be our moderator. She's going to be inspiring and guiding us through this dialogue today. So Estelle, thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and a very warm welcome to all of you and the excellent panelists in particular. Really looking forward to this discussion. So, as Stefan said, I'm Estelle Herszenhorn. I'm WRAP's Head of Food System Transformation. WRAP are a global environmental action NGO working to transform product and food systems to create circular living. And we've been working on food waste prevention from farm to fork for over 20 years now. I've also been in sustainability for my whole career, and the last 15 of those working farm to fork on reducing food waste. So this is a subject really close to my heart and really exciting for WRAP as an organisation to have this kind of diverse set of discussions. So really grateful to be here today, very excited. And originally, WRAP's work was originated in the UK, but household food waste and food waste is a global issue, and that's very much something that's relevant to all of us, and we work around the world now as well. And there has been some success during that time. So during the time that WRAP have been working on reducing food waste, household food waste per capita in the UK has reduced by 17%, which is a fantastic result. However, we know that there is so much more to do in the UK and around the world. And that's because around the world, around a third of food is either lost or wasted. And the significant majority of that is in our homes. And in fact, in the UK, the average household of 4 people still throws away around £1,000 worth of good food each year. And so this is definitely an area of focus to WRAP, and I can tell from the panelists participating today, something that has huge resonance. And WRAP's approach to consumer behaviour change to try and reduce household food waste really resonates with Consumers International 4 principles to a just transition to a more sustainable lifestyle. So we take an approach of, whilst that food waste is happening in all of our homes, that's not to put the onus of responsibility on just the individual to act. It's really important that we create a food system that really enables people to take the steps they need to buy what they need and use what they buy when it comes to food waste. So we take an approach of shared responsibility, and we frame that as working through people, policy, and partners. And so I'm really excited to have the diversity we have on the panel today to bring those different perspectives from around the world so that we can figure out together how we're going to tackle household food waste. So that's my opener, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion to bring it to life. I think before I come to each of the panelists to introduce themselves and ask the first question, we're going to go back to Alexandra for the Slido, is that right? So we can get some audience participation. So I'll do that now. Thank you. So will you just talk through how this works, or shall I?
I can explain. So thank you very much, Ali, for putting it up. So if folks can use your phone, please, you can scan the QR code. That'll take you to a poll. We'll give you a few minutes to move through the polls. One question, you're going to be ranking your responses to the question, which means that we're asking you to identify challenges that you experience in the household, and you'll use a ranking function to see like which is most challenging to you. And then we'll come back and look at the results in a moment. So I think, yes, I think the Slido link is also in the chat and available to the audience. So we can proceed. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. So do participate in that. It might be quite cathartic to get your sense of what you see happening in your own homes, and help bring this discussion to life. So thanks so much. So I'm going to come to each of our panelists and ask them to give a short introduction to their role and how it relates to reducing food waste in our homes. And the first question I'd like us to start on is some positivity. So what do you see really working to help consumers reduce food waste in the home? And first of all, I'm going to come to Belén, please.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Estelle. And I am working in communications, but I have been 20 years working in the retail business. So I think, yeah, definitely, besides being personally a food lover and a waste hater, I have been also seeing this topic from different angles. And I think what is working well, let me mention 3 things. Firstly, I think that consumers are ready to reduce their footprint, and this is super important. At IKEA, we're a little bit obsessed to study how people live, eat, cook, and behave at home. And our research confirms that food waste is due to our busy lives or forgotten leftovers, but still most customers are ready to take action, and this is fantastic. And we know from Project Drawdown that eating more plant-based food and reducing waste are the 2 top actions that consumers can do, and that we are encouraging to take a behavioral shift on. Then secondly, besides that consumers are ready, companies are really leading the way in preventing food waste. And I think I really feel proud that we are committing to reducing food waste without compromising on safety, affordability, and growth. So since fiscal year 17, I think we started, that is 8 years now, we have cut production food waste by 60%. So we have saved around 38 million portions of food, and we have reached the SDG 50% reduction target 9 years early. So I think the second good news is that when you have really engaged co-workers, when the why is clear, we can prove that real change is possible. And that, I think, builds trust on consumer behavior, because they are ready, they see that business can do it, and they trust that is doable. And then I think my third one that is working well is that it is very easy, as you just did, Estelle, to link that food waste is also bringing us savings. So I think that the fact that half of food waste is happening at home, and it's highlighting such an opportunity for saving for families. So it's proving that is what is good for the planet. It's also good for the wallets of the many people.
Yes, thank you for bringing that to life. And it's one of the strange things about it, isn't it? There's all these reasons to reduce food waste, and yet here we are having it. So really great to hear kind of the things you think are making a difference. Thank you. So next I'm going to come to Alka.
Yeah, thank you so much. So India is particularly interesting. In our culture, we have this concept of annadanam, which means offering of food, and which highlights the importance of sharing and not wasting food. So it has deep-rooted religious and cultural connotation to it. Then another interesting concept within our culture is resourceful cooking, where we frequently transform our leftover food into the newer dishes. So those are the strength we have within our established practices. Now coming to, as I serve in the country on behalf of regulator, so I see what is happening is this urbanization and consumerism and abundance, which is becoming a problem. And also some of the traditions like grand weddings that we host in our country and those kind of things are real challenge. And there we are trying to bring home this message through our Eat Right India initiative. This is what is working really well, where we are trying to promote habits of sustainable food practices, as rightly shared by my previous speaker, also promoting plant-based diet and all vegan and vegetarian food. Another thing is consumer awareness campaign. Again, under the Eat Right India initiative, we are trying to do multiple action, both at the supply and demand side. And one most important thing is we have brought out our regulation, food safety and standards on recovery and distribution of surplus food, which is in force 2019 onwards. And this has helped bring a lot of programs around food donation programs like Indian Food Sharing Alliance. Akshay Patra is another very successful program that we have, and several similar organizations, including Robin Hood Army, Feeding India by Zomato, India Food Banking Network. So some of these are completely from the private sector, some are through NGOs, and some are supported by the government. So this is what all is, I believe, working at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's so interesting to hear kind of the cultural aspects that can help or that can be harnessed to help people reduce food waste. And great to hear an example of a campaign that's working in India. When we were planning this session and the title was called Love Food, Hate Waste, I was really pleased about that because RAP run a campaign called Love Food, Hate Waste. And it's really great to hear like the positive messages that come through campaigns. And in your role as a regulator in India, actually, you gave an example there about how that's helped unlock surplus food redistribution. I just want to share an example about how important that kind of relationship with and the backing of a food safety regulator can be in businesses and other organisations taking action to reduce food waste. And so an example from here in the UK is we work with the Food Standards Agency, which I suppose would be our kind of equivalent of who's regulating the food system in the UK to make sure it's safe for consumers. And having their advice and endorsement on the best practice guidance that says to businesses, you don't need a use by date label on that. You can have a best before date, or you can say something is suitable for freezing, has been an important step to then help unlock the action that's going to help all of us as consumers when we're interacting with our food. And it's a really important part, I think, of building trust. Certainly, I think in some cultures, people have become less confident in their own judgment about how to treat and use food. And that's one of the things I think we can overcome to help us all make the most of the food we buy in our homes. So when to cook things, confident using leftovers, really helpful. And I'd be keen to hear more about the situation in India and what you see the opportunities there. Thank you. I'm going to move on to Clementine now. Would you give your perspective, please?
Yes, thanks a lot, Estelle. Happy to. UNEP's food waste index report shows that 60% of food waste occurs in the home. And I just wanted to share a couple of examples that show that significant reductions in consumer food waste are achievable. I wanted to start with Japan that has reduced household food waste by 46% since they began to work on this topic in 2000. So they have had quite a long time to do this, but they are almost at the SDG 12.3 target. They have done this through, I'd like to start by signaling the importance of collecting robust food waste data. So they have a requirement for cities to collect and report household food waste data on an annual basis. They conduct annual surveys on the drivers of that food waste that then feeds into a national campaign, which is complemented by local initiatives for implementation. So shows the scale of what can be achieved. Of course, a fantastic example in the UK of an awareness campaign that is deeply connected to a public-private partnership on food waste that gets that buy-in and collaboration from food businesses, because we can just because this can just be done as a team. I wanted to close by signaling that local governments have a key role as well. Those that have enacted food waste deterrence policies that get food out of landfill through pay-as-you-throw systems, or landfill bans or fees, and the separate collection of food waste. When this is coupled with food waste prevention messaging, this is particularly effective. Thanks.
Thank you, Clementine. Yeah, I, as you know, completely back the need for kind of data-driven action. It's really hard reducing food waste. So getting the data to understand what food is wasted, where and why is so helpful to kind of figure out, well, where are we gonna have the biggest impact that we possibly can using those insights. And really amazing to hear that example from Japan. Also really agree with the potential when food waste collections being introduced, that opportunity to then get messages out to consumers and householders about food waste prevention. Really fantastic examples. Thank you. And then finally, I'm going to come to Stefan to tell us his perspective on what he thinks is really working to reduce household food waste.
Okay, thank you. If we consider that we are living in a society with overproduction and overconsumption, is having this in mind is very difficult, or try to make a consumer awareness about how is dual consumption linked with everything, with a lot of people who doesn't have access to the food or the climate change, for example. So you have overproduction, overconsumption. Changing lifestyles is a challenge for consumers organization. We make consumer awareness. We make a campaign. We try to link this with other other issues at the climate change. But as long as we live in a society that status means that you have overconsumption, it's a kind of it's like in the working against the wind. But anyway, we try to make consumer awareness about this, and the responsibility is not the onus, just onus in our shoulders. I mean, what do you mean with best before and expiration date? What do you mean with this? When we have to have in mind also food safety, but the producer doesn't explain what mean best before. Is best before that it stays better, or after this date is waste? So changing this, I mean, this is the challenge for us is to make all the, I mean, consumer organization, government, and suppliers and producers, so who can together try to still fight against the wind. We see so. Thank you.
Yes, really resonates with what I was saying earlier about this shared responsibility and different actors having a different ability to kind of influence and support each of us in our homes. So completely agree with that. And on date labels, I'm afraid that is a bit of a pet project of mine, because I do agree that there's huge potential to get changes in that regard that can help us make the most of the food we buy. We did a staggering study actually in the UK where fresh fruit and vegetables, so like apples, bananas and so forth, are sold with a best before date on, or they were sold with a best before date on. And we showed people fruit and veg at different stages of kind of ripeness. And we showed 1,500 people the same image with a date label, a best before date. And we showed them the same image without a date label. And we asked people, would you eat this or would you throw it away? And when there was a date label in the same image, around a third of people said they'd throw away a perfect banana. Whereas when there was no date label, the exact same image, only 3% of people said they would throw it away. So the impact that date labels have on people's judgment of when food is good to eat is much bigger, I think, than we appreciate. And we've used that in the UK as evidence to go to supermarkets and say, there is no legal requirement to sell fruit and veg with a best before date. So take it off and you'll save millions of pounds worth of food waste in our homes. And fruit and veg are the most wasted items in our homes in the UK. So really, just to bring to life kind of what you were saying, you know, what that really means in practice. So yeah, thank you for giving me a jumping off point for one of my favourite subjects on reducing household food waste. Thank you everyone for the introductions, and great to start with what we think is really working. We're going to drill down into some of the kind of the compromises we might need to reach and what's a kind of key thing that we think businesses and policymakers can do. Before we do that, can we draw up the results of the Slido poll, please, so we can take a look at what you all think and what you all experience. Thank you. Oh, well, that's the first one is really cements what I was saying. I promise I hadn't seen this before it came up. So thank you. And actually, what strikes me here, so I don't know how you experienced this when you were participating, and just to say, like, it's not a setup, but what this really illustrates is there is no one thing that's causing us to waste food in our homes. We're each interacting with food. It's a super passionate subject for lots of people. Like, we all eat, we all have a relationship with food, and then we all have our own personal circumstances, whether that be you're frantic up to here and you're working and you've got a family and you're just fueling yourself, or if it's something you really care about and it's part of your like social life. And what this shows, I think, is completely reflective of what most people experience in our homes, is that unfortunately there's loads of reasons why food gets wasted, and that makes tackling food waste difficult. But at the same time, it means that there are loads of ways to help people buy what they need and use the food that they're buying. So whilst it can feel like a big problem, I think some of the examples today will help bring to life that there is definitely a message of like, we can do this. There are lots of routes to help people reduce food waste in their homes. So maybe there's some of those that resonate with you more. And it's interesting as well. I think kind of there's two types of people, for example, when it comes to leftovers. I think there's the type of person that would be like, leftovers, what leftovers? That's my meal for the next few days. And then there are some people where that just isn't the case. And I think the kind of diversity of people's experiences with food mean that there's lots of opportunities for us to take action that's going to really help people in their own places, in their own homes, with kind of the experiences they're having. I noticed number 6, recruiting, inspiring, educating others. One of the things to kind of, if you participated in today's discussion, thank you. I hope you get a lot from it. But also, can I recruit you as people that will go on to educate and inspire others in your household, but also in your workplace, because people are employees too. So whatever route you have to influence, please do take it. I'm sure people will be very happy to talk about food with you. If I've learned nothing, it's that everyone wants to talk about how much food they're wasting or not. And there's an opportunity there to have a bit of a jumping off point for a discussion. Thanks so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. If any of the panelists have got some views they want to integrate into their next answers, then we'd be happy to. I'm actually thinking if we just focus in, because we've got limited time on the discussion, I'm going to jump to the specific roles that different organisations can play. So first off, I think understanding more about how businesses can support consumers to reduce food waste. So I'm going to ask each of Belén and Clementine to comment on, if businesses only do like 1 or 2 things, what do you think are the key ways that you can help people reduce food waste in people's homes? Belén?
Yeah, and that's probably, since you have your pet topics, this is probably mine, because I feel we do have a huge possibility due to our high visibility and our reach, but also a huge responsibility to drive systemic change by setting ambitious food waste and targets and sharing these lessons so that we can inspire others to take action. So I really think that there is many ways, but most of the more than half of the food waste happens at home. So this is an incredible saving opportunity. So I do think that, to answer your question, offering practical, affordable solutions that help people store or plan or use their food better is the way that we can influence more, because we can make sustainable choices easier. And this is what people think. They need, that they are easier, and they need also that the sustainable choices are also low cost. So I think number 1 is helping them, offering them solutions. And I think it's also influencing their behaviors through education, through accessibility, through incentives, through inspiration from our own actions. So that would be the second path. I think effective strategies include communication, include smart design, and also include partnerships. And if you allow me to mention one, we are, for example, working with Too Good To Go, the world's largest surplus food marketplace. And we are offering customers in more than 10 countries surprise bags of surplus food from IKEA food. And that is really saving incredible amounts of waste. So it's a combination. There is not one path, and we are surely committed, because I think reducing and preventing waste has always been at the heart of our business.
Thank you. Yes, and we work with Too Good To Go, and there are some, a bit like we were talking about earlier, when food waste collections are rolled out, it's an opportunity to communicate with householders. I don't know if you found this, but we found this similarly with organisations like Too Good To Go or anyone redistributing surplus food. That's an opportunity then to give information to those people who are receiving that surplus food of how they can make the most of the food they have. And often that's kind of a double win, because it's those people who are most in need of being able to make the most of the food they buy. Do you do anything similar like that in terms of outreach and communication?
100%. And also as a receiver, and I'm a good to go user, you also feel good. So you
Yeah.
not only benefit more, but you feel proud because you do get, okay, by your action, you just saved this. So it's like a double education, I believe.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And Clementine, would you like to come in with any examples?
Yes, thanks. So two things. I think that food, particularly focusing on the retail sector, there is a lot that can be done in the retail environment, in particular to help customers to buy the right amount. So providing a range of portion sizes that suited different types of families, replacing 2-for-1 deals so that we're not stimulating people to buy more than they need or can eat in time. If retailers are offering discounted perishable foods, accompany this with a message, with a practical tip on how they can integrate that in tonight's dinner. We've run pilots on this, and this can be an effective approach to help consumers. Shorter supply chains or local foods. When customers have access to food that is fresher, then they have more time in the home to use that food up and take advantage of the wide range of communications channels that retailers have at their disposal, from shelf talkers to advertising budgets, including local social media, in-store radio. You can print tips on receipts. You can use loyalty accounts to communicate targeted tips as well. There are a wide range of ways that retailers can help consumers to introduce food waste reduction.
Thank you. Yeah, completely agree. The retailers, they're such an important kind of inflection point. You know, millions of us are shopping with them, so it's such an important place to have influence. And actually, I'm going to pick up on that example, if that's okay, Clementine, to link us to the next question, which is for Alka and Stefan, about what policymakers can do to really help create an environment, an enabling environment to help us all reduce food waste. And one example that kind of connects those two for me is, again, around fruit and veg. People are going to think I've got a super healthy diet. I do love fruit and veg. But one of the, like you pointed out, Clementine, perishable foods are often the ones that are most wasted because people haven't used them in time. Certainly in the UK, fruit and veg are the most wasted items in our homes. And we identified that if fruit and veg, if 20 kind of key items of fruit and veg were sold loose and only loose, that would reduce household food waste by over 14 million shopping baskets worth of fresh fruit and veg every year, which is huge. And that's because buying things like potatoes, apples, bananas loose means you can buy an amount that you can use in the time before they go off, rather than if you live alone, you don't necessarily need 5 bananas or a 2-kilogram bag of potatoes. However, there's a link to a policy need here, because for retailers, there can be a first mover disadvantage to selling loose, because they might lose sales to another retailer who's selling the more kind of convenient packaged version, which in the UK, we've got really used to buying fruit and veg in packaging. So we've got a call to policymakers to say that a policy that bans plastic packaging and packaging for certain items of fruit and veg will help create a level playing field that will reduce household food waste, but also remove unnecessarily plastic packaging. So I just wanted to give that example to link to the next question, which is, first of all, for Alka, what do you think is key for policymakers to do, if you could wave a magic wand, to really create that enabling environment for consumers?
Yeah, thank you so much, Estelle. Very nice question for me. And I understand that the first and foremost thing is to place some regulation or guidance at the forefront. And for example, in India, we have brought this regulation, which is very, very comprehensive. And it directs both, not just the FBO, but also the consumers. So for consumer side, the concern would be the surplus food, if it is available to me, is it safe for me to eat? So that assurance as a food regulator, as a policy maker, you can create by putting such processes in place whereby there is a standard practice, operating principles are there. And also in our regulation, we have given provisions of giving license to the food distribution organization. So we have defined what should be the best practices these surplus food collection and distribution organization should adopt. And this instills faith in the consumer on both sides. At the collection site also, because these are the registered collection organization and not like anybody, and that is one. Second is there is it gives a scope for structured intervention. Even channelizing the surplus food is much better when organizations are involved. So and as I informed already, these organizations are varied kind. NGOs are involved. Some are public-private partnership kind of ventures, and some are purely the community-based, need-based scenarios. So this is one. Second is all the time, no matter how much we try to generate awareness, it is always less. And particularly in case of India, where the population is 1.4 billion, any amount of effort is less. So educating continuously about the very, very small things, like how to store the food, even about the labels, what is the shelf life or the expiry date and all those. So it is the policymaker who has to bring in the clear, clean, simpler labels. Like one of our fantastic label is on vegetarian and non-vegetarian distinction. The consumer in India is very, very sensitive to this. So we have a very small symbol, a dot, green dot, which signifies that it is a vegetarian food, and the brown triangle, which says that it's a non-vegetarian food. So this has been very, very successful labeling intervention in promoting the safe storage and also segregation of food, because sometimes that can also lead to a lot of wastage when you mix the two different kind of food and all. And then recycling is again one of our focus area, which is required on both sides, as you just mentioned, plastic and sustainable approach. So that is another way of reducing the food packaging waste, basically. So there we have brought in the regulation to promote the recycling of plastic for the food users. And then, monitoring and enforcement goes hand in hand. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely agree about the kind of the responsibility being there in terms of regulation, giving that confidence to people. I liked your label examples as well. And it's funny, kind of, you were saying about the need for communication. I think we shouldn't underestimate that what people need are simple things that they can do. So, for example, if you keep your fruit and veg in the fridge, it will last days, weeks, or even months longer. You don't need a high-tech solution. You need to know to pop that fruit and veg in your fridge, and that will give you loads longer to use it. And so what can we all do to help people understand things like that? Might be a label solution, might be others. Thank you, Alka. And same question to Stefan, if you could make one policy change happen or something that you've seen happen that can really help reduce household food waste, what would you propose?
Well, more or less what I said before, I will repeat, but storage and labeling is a key question, and education, key question. But I want to discuss one thing. I think that consumer organization, at least what we try to do in Chile, is to encourage the retailers or the restaurants or the supermarket to have a special offer for the people who are trying to save food, to are trying to change the styles. I mean, we try to promote and the consumer make prioritize, we say so, prioritize buying in the supermarket retailer that have a policy that encourage the reasonable consumption and have a policy about it. Because, what I said before, this is impossible to do, to make a change if we don't work together with the private sector. So at the same time that we try to make policy making with the politicians, so for changing the bills, changing the regulation, sometimes the consumer organization have to push it in a way that the suppliers change, the offer change. So how you can make the suppliers to change their selling, it was so. Doing that consumers don't buy there, they are wasting food. So information, this is important, but the also consumer can say you can buy in this retail, in this restaurant, because they have a kind of, we say so in general, certification or whatever, that these are, I mean, it's a problem for consumers who are interested in the problem of the wasting, waste problem. So, beside what they say, the labeling, and beside all the things that I say here, like education awareness, consumer awareness, we are, our challenge is to change the old, how the private sector, how the suppliers offer to the consumer, and who consumers are aware to use consumer power in changing the suppliers' behavior. That's I would say.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think one of the things I've observed is food businesses, which obviously we've identified are like really key to this action. And one of the things I've observed is that in the past, I think there was a sense of either denial or defensiveness about kind of food waste or household food waste being a kind of food businesses problem. And one of the really positive things I've observed is that businesses, I think, now take much more of an attitude of they can see their responsibility for their part in that solution. And actually, it's framed much more as a positive thing. So a thing that they can offer their customers and the consumers. So I think that's a positive change that we should definitely harness. I'm going to round us out now. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists if what they're kind of, in 20 seconds, their call to action, particularly for the people who've participated today. You are now the people that can go and hopefully you've been inspired and spread the word and take action yourself. So I'm going to start with Stefan, because you were just in the mic. what's your kind of 20-second call to action for the people that have participated in today's session? Oh, you're on mute, Stefan, so do come on the mic.
You address to me. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, I was distracted. Sorry.
Yeah, so tell if you could say in 20 seconds to the people here today, what's your call to action to reduce household food waste? What would you want people to go away doing after our discussion today?
Okay, thank you very much, and sorry for the distraction. That what I have did in 20 seconds, this for me is labeling, consumer education, shining patterns. It's no question consumer less, consumers consumes different. Consumers have to be different, and that it means also that suppliers have to change their patterns, must change what they are offering to the consumers, and consumers have to buy and have to favorize the suppliers that fulfill all the requests for sustainable consumption.
Thank you. So we're all consumers, make your choices wisely, and if you're a supplier or have an influence over one, please do consider what you could do. Thank you. Same question to Clementine, please. What's your call to action?
Thanks a lot. Busy lifestyles exacerbate food waste. Policymakers can send a clear signal on getting food out of landfill, and food businesses can provide food environments and messaging that helps people to buy the right amount, underlining how this helps them to cut costs and combat climate change. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And Alka, your call to action?
Yeah, thank you. And we all know that food waste is a massive challenge, and the traditions teach us to value food, but modern life complicates that. And let's be honest about it, the perfect solution do not exist. So, but by combining practical steps, better storage, smart buying, supporting organizations that rescue surplus food, and I think we can make a real difference. And it's about small changes consistently applied by all of us. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alka. Completely agree. And Belén?
Yeah, I was enjoying that one. Mine would be together we can prevent food waste without compromising safety, affordability, or business growth. So it's always people that can make the difference. We have a responsibility as business, as employees of our business, as regulators, and also as individuals to educate and lead by example. And that includes at home with our own children. I think we have a huge role to play there. What is good for the planet is good also for the wallets of the many people. So every action counts. Let's be the positive change.
Yes, I love that. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for such a diverse set of voices. Although if I can just make a couple of minutes of observations from the discussion today, one of the things that struck me is whilst we do have a really diverse panel in terms of our individual experiences, where we're working around the world, and our different kind of situations in terms of where in the food system we are, I think it's really quite heartening to hear how aligned and empowered we all feel for kind of the changes that need to be made. And that's not to shy away from how difficult it is, but I would say kind of for all of us here today and for everyone, you know, if you participated in that Slido, there is something that everyone can do either as an individual or as their point in the system. So the people they can influence, whether it's your own home, whether it's where you're working, whether it's a policymaker, that you can get that message out there. And this is definitely not a one and done kind of action. So, and I completely agree with what Alka said, this is not about us all being perfect. We need millions of people doing small things differently if we're going to tackle household food waste. So I hope you've really enjoyed the discussion today, and I hope you're all going away with a sense of kind of, one, the shared responsibility that we have to take action, but also one of empowerment, such that you feel you can do something differently following the discussion today. So I'd really encourage you to do that, because you are now all the ambassadors to help reduce food waste. So thank you very much, and a big thank you to the panelists for such an excellent discussion. And thank you to Stefan and the team at Consumers International for the opportunity to talk about Love Food, Hate Waste.
Estelle, thank you so much. And thank you to all our panelists. I personally learned a lot today. I'm going to take this back to my own household. We have some ways to improve, but thank you so much for the insights. My call to action is very easy. We have additional sessions throughout this week as part of our Sustainable Lifestyle Summit. In fact, just after this session, we have one on achieving access to food on a healthy planet, so continuing the dialogue on food. We talked a lot today about labels and consumer information. Later today, we have another session titled Consumer Information for Trust, Safety and Sustainability. So lots more on the themes that we discussed today. We hope you'll see those there. Next week, we'll be sharing a wrap of the summit with all attendees. And thanks again to Estelle, our panelists, and to our audience for listening. Cheers.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you.
Thanks.